Our next question comes from April. Why do the majority of companies not cover realistic expenses of traveling to an assignment that's far away? And so I guess she's asking, why, if I got to go from Florida to Washington, it costs me $2,000, my company's only going to give me $500 in travel reimbursement? How would you answer that?
Yeah, perfect. Well, typically agencies will have a bucket of money that is reserved for travelers to help them pay for their travel from where they're traveling from to their next assignment.
Yep.
Most companies will have a cap and they'll say, we will reimburse up to $500. Sometimes they'll go up to $1,000, but the bigger it gets, one of the other things you might see is they'll give you half of it on your first paycheck and half of it on your last paycheck. So the reason for this, and the reason that number doesn't get huge almost ever, is because that is a risk that the staffing agency is taking before you ever work. And unfortunately, there are travelers who will say yes to an assignment and then just not show up or cancel after just 1 week because something else great came up. And after, if let's say you were a staffing agency and you got burned a few times where maybe at first you were giving them a lot of tax-free money on that travel, and then the traveler didn't show up and you just lost a lot of money, or they only worked 2 weeks. And as a staffing agency, you realize it takes quite a few weeks to actually become profitable on a traveler because you're putting a lot of your own money up front, trusting that the traveler will fulfill their contract, work their hours, not call out sick too much, all of these things for them to eventually, by the end of that 13 weeks, make the amount they thought they would make to run their business.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the reason. They want to give you an amount that is a fair risk for them, where if you didn't show up, it wouldn't devastate them, I guess, but also enough to give you a perk. And typically that comes on your first paycheck. So if you don't start at all, you won't get anything. After you work that first week, you'll usually get your travel reimbursement on the first paycheck. So that first paycheck is more exciting, and it probably helps you cover things like your deposit for where you're staying and pay you back for some of those travel expenses. And then you always have things you have to buy when you go to new places, restock the pantry and stuff. So it does help a lot, but it's not going to be a crazy amount because you've got to work for them to get paid back.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but they're essentially paying you money that you're going to make up front. And they're saying like, hey, we understand it's expensive to relocate.
Yeah.
It's expensive to drive and pack your stuff and put a down payment on a place, all this stuff. We're going to give you a little bit of the money you would have made on this 13-week contract, and we're going to give it to you up front.
Mm-hmm.
And if they give too much money up front, not only could the traveler cancel or something happen or a death in the family, whatever the thing is, the facility could cancel.
Or the
right?
facility, the facility could cancel.
Anything could happen. And imagine giving somebody $2,000 up front and then it gets canceled day 2, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, the agency eats that money, right?
Yeah.
Like the traveler doesn't have to pay it back.
Even if a traveler works 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's still not enough time for them to make up for that money.
Totally.
Staffing agencies are in the hole, paying more money than you've earned back for them essentially for quite a few weeks.
Yeah.
So when you get that first paycheck, the staffing agency makes nothing. They're in the negative. The second paycheck, they've made nothing yet. They're in the negative. So you do have to work.
Agencies only get paid when you work.
Yeah.
So if they think of it like a graph, right? Like if they pay you a travel reimbursement up front, they're in the hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they have paid workers' comp, liability insurance, paid the recruiter, all that stuff, right? So they're in the hole. And you start working and say this is break even. It's like 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, 5 week. And then they start breaking in the profitability.
Yeah.
And that's how they kind of make their money. Gave you so much money up front, it's going to go way long to break even, extremely risky. Say you have hundreds of travelers on assignment. It's a very risky business move, right?
Yeah. And it happens all the time. Travelers leaving early or facilities canceling early. So I think it's good that the traveler does get a boost, because if the facility cancels on them, a traveler took the risk to go there, hoping the facility would do it. So it's kind of a shared risk. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of like the same, there's pots of money, right? There's the bill rate, and then it goes to their taxable wages. It goes to the cut of the agency. A little bit goes to your housing. If you put too much in the reimbursement bucket, you won't have enough money for housing.
Well, that's a good point. It's all essentially getting prepaid. If they didn't give you any money for travel, they should have $500 or $1,000, whatever it was,
Yeah.
more money to put into your pay package and your stipend. So the money is just in another bucket that's essentially making your full picture of what your pay package is, which is another thing to keep in mind when you're comparing pay packages. Is if you're getting $1,000 from one company and $500 from another, it's a part of your collective pay
Yeah.
package. So to pay attention to the little pots of money and add all your pots of money up when you're actually figuring out how much you're getting paid for an assignment,
Yeah.
not just overemphasizing what your taxable rate is or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a great time to plug, but that's hard math to do, right? Especially if you're comparing multiple offers. So you have 3 or 4 offers and you have all this different stuff.
Yeah.
Company A is 500, company B is 750, but company C does this much, whatever the case is. We actually have a tool. It's called the Fair Pay Calculator, right? And so if you go to nomadicare.com, go up to free resources, click the Fair Pay Calculator, you can actually type in all this information, right? And so then you can compare, like Laura was saying, apples to apples and kind of see the total numbers and kind of break it down so it's easy to compare multiple offers and see what's the total value of an offer versus this one has a higher number here, that one has a lower number there. You can kind of like see the overall picture.
It puts it in a good summary. And my favorite part about that tool is it teaches you how to negotiate too. So you can put in your stuff and the page that shows you the summaries of everything will show you parts that you might want to negotiate.
Yeah. And
too.
I mean, negotiating on extensions is so related to reimbursements for travel and licensure, right? Because if you extend at a facility, well, that's easy money to negotiate for your extension or your next contract is because, well, I don't need to travel. I don't need to get another license. And so if they gave you that money up front, you should move that money back over to your total comp, right? Like you should make that money back.
Yeah, you should. If they gave you $1,000 for travel, you extended, that $1,000 is either going to go to the staffing agency or you got to ask them, put it in my pay package. Otherwise you're essentially taking a pay decrease if you think of it that way.
The best part about the Fair Pay Calculator that I love is it will actually tell you the dollar amount to negotiate for based on what you put in for all of your reimbursements.
Yeah, it's a great
it will literally be like, oh, you need to negotiate $1.75 raise per hour for this extension. So it's like saves you a ton of time, ton of headache, and you have data. Like data is
a powerful tool for getting what you want to. If you can explain why you deserve that to the recruiter, you're much more likely to get it.
If there's one thing that you learn from this podcast is just going to learn data is going to be your best friend, right? And Nomadicare helps you see that data in a transparent way. So then you can negotiate and make decisions with some kind of like substance, right? Like with data, like you actually know the number instead of saying, I want more money, or like this person's paying me unfairly. Like, how do you actually know this stuff, and what actions do you take on it, and how do you negotiate? Like, use numbers, and it increases your odds a lot. Cool. Great question.
Nice to meet you. Hello. Never been here before, but I feel like I'm home. Yeah. Put my feet on the road. Meet me over the coast. We got places to go.